In this video, we're going to be looking at focus, and in particular, animal eye focus. Now, no matter whether you're a working photographer or somebody who takes pictures just because you love to do it, having trust in your kit, knowing that it'll do what it's meant to do and when you need it to do it is one thing. But I actually think that equally important is to use kit that's fit for purpose and that allows you as the photographer to be creative and for the camera to be able to capture it. Now, over the past couple of years, I've been working on a project called the 39 to 45 Portraits project that, before the current restrictions, saw me tour in the UK photographing our surviving World War II veterans so that I could present them and their families with a classic, timeless portrait that will remain in the family for generations to come and also at no expense to them. Kind of like my way of saying thank you for what these incredibly brave, selfless people did for us all those years ago. Now, when taking the portraits, I'll always do like a seated or a standing shot, but I'll also want to do a close-up headshot, and that's not with everybody because sometimes it's just not appropriate. These headshots have an incredibly shallow depth of field, being photographed at around f2 or even f1.8, and that's a creative choice by me so that the viewer is totally drawn into the eyes. Now, shooting portraits wide open at f2 or 1.8, I've got to totally nail the focus on those eyes, because being that wide open I could very easily focus on an eyelash with the eye being out of focus. Now, with advances in technology, our Sony cameras can now recognise a human eye, and that is a huge help when it comes to shooting portraits wide open. Also really good for video. But as well as that, they can now recognise an animal's eye. Check this out. Oh, Bets. Sissies. Can you bring it up here for us? How that's tracking that eye is insane, isn't it? Now, you've got to admit, that is pretty cool stuff. But if you're like me, you kind of think, well, if it's recognising the animal's eye, is it really that different to the human eye? But look at this. I put the camera onto Tom, and it doesn't pick up his eye. Take it back to Betsy, it picks up the eye. Incredible. That is mad, isn't it? And then on you, nothing. Wow. That is incredible. Now I'm going to show you where the settings are for this, but just kind of carrying on with the testing of it. When I was doing that, I've then gone into the settings, changed it back to human eye, so turning off the animal eye, and this is what happened. Betsy, nothing. On you, there, your eye. How crazy is that? Yeah.
How can it tell?
Now, I'm actually going to show you behind the scenes of the photo shoot I ended up doing of Betsy. But before we do that, let's just dive in to show you where you get these settings so that you can turn on either the animal eye focus or the human eye focus. Now, all you need to do is go to the menus. I'm using a Sony A7 IV, and I actually find this in menu 1. So go to menu 1, scroll across to where you see the face eye AF set, click on that, and within there you can see it says subject detection, and this is where you can turn on either the animal eye focus or the human eye focus. Simple as that. Now, this kind of technology is so incredibly useful, especially when you've used it and you know you can trust it. It kind of frees you up to be thinking more about the creative as opposed to the technicals, if that makes sense. Anyway, let's take a look now at the photo shoot in which I definitely had animal eye focus turned on. So this is where I took the photograph, and as for the setup, you can see I've opted for just one light, which is generally my preferred setup. The position of the light is high enough so that the part of the light hitting the dog is the softer feathered edge. I was using my Sony A7 IV, and the lens I went for was the 70 to 200mm G Master. The one I have is the f4.
That's nice. Bring that further towards me. There you go.
I don't use it that often as my preferred portrait lens is the 85mm G Master, the 1.4, which is just unreal. But for this particular shoot, the compression that the 70 to 200mm gives was exactly what I wanted.
Can you see how that's on there, look? On her eye. That's amazing, isn't it?
For a great focal length, it's also incredibly light. Now as for the settings, this was shot wide open for the lens at f4, giving a nice shallow depth of field with the hay bales behind falling out of focus. The camera I put into manual, which I tend to use most of the time because I like the consistency of exposure from shot to shot. But to first of all find a good exposure, I put the camera into aperture priority. I set my aperture of f4 and put the ISO down to 100. I can then make a mental note of what the settings aperture priority gives me, turn the camera into manual and dial them in. Of course I could have just used exposure lock, but this is just my preferred way to work. Now other camera settings, I had the focus area set to wide. I had continuous focus mode on because Betsy was constantly moving, and for the drive mode I just had it set to single shooting. So there you go, there's a quick look behind the scenes at a recent dog photo shoot, which if I'm honest isn't something I would ordinarily do, but this whole worldwide situation that we're all living through at the moment has made me want to get out when I can and try new things. I think this is really important for all of us to get out, because not only is it keeping us creative, but it's keeping the tools in our hands and it's keeping us in that learning zone. So I'm looking on a positive side of it, when all this is behind us, we can hit the ground running.